It's going. There we go. So we are very lucky to once again have Shelly with us to discuss this movie. Before we start, just a couple of real quick notes. The May calendar is out for the Friends at the Library on the 5th. That Broward College Jazz is going to be doing a presentation, and I'm admitting people as we speak. And then don't forget, on the 19th, the Historic Society is going to be doing a presentation on the Fire and Safety Museum. And Linda asked about the movies. So I was going to say the movies at the library are The Lincoln Lawyer is on the 13th. And then the In the Heights is on the 20th. And on the 27th, the library is closed. So the calendars are out, and you can also find them on the Stirling Friends website. And without further ado, we're going to turn this over to Shelly so he can take us to another world. So take it away, Shelly.
Literally. Good evening, everybody. It is nice to see everyone tonight. Okay, so tonight is Les Cowboys. Les Cowboys. It's from 2015. It is from France. It is by a director who started as a screenwriter, Thomas Bidegain. And this is his first feature. This was his first directorial feature, which is quite an accomplishment. It is in so many languages. It's in French, English, Arabic, Flemish, Pashtun. It goes through several countries, from France to Belgium, Denmark, Pakistan, and Yemen, and back to France. It is a cinematically enthralling epic spanning continents and years, with a storyline that begins in 1994 and carries over for the next 2 decades. The story sets out to convey the larger cultural changes on a global scale through a working-class family's encounter with the Muslim world. 15 years of recent history is distilled into a timely message that is thoughtful, that is pragmatic. The plot moves around in place and time. We are forced to think about where we are and what is happening at given moments, but no matter how elliptical the timeline becomes, it all remains very coherent. The Father's Quest and the film's title should bring to mind an American classic, which the director has spoken about. He based this on a John Wayne film called The Searchers, directed by John Ford. It is one of the classic Westerns of all time. And it also alludes to a culture clash. That film is a cultural clash between the Native Americans and the
what's her name?
And the Cowboys. And the Cowboys. And like John Wayne's Civil War vet, his name was Ethan Edwards. Alain doesn't exactly make it clear what he will do if he accomplishes his mission, keeping in mind that Ethan wants to find and kill his kidnapped niece for going native. In that film, Natalie Wood played his niece, and he wants to kill her at one point. It's the story of simple folk who are projected into the chaos of a world they don't understand, and how big events reveal a smaller, more intimate story as we drill down. As I said, it begins in 1994, ends in 2011. There are 4 chapters: the disappearance, the investigation, the adventure, and the return home, and a love story. At the very beginning, we see a man raising his arms to a waterfall. If you remember the opening, it is very cryptic. There is a man standing with his arms up. It is a moment we will reflect on later, because we don't know who the man is, and he has a brief appearance a little while into the film. He is a metaphor for the American Indian, acknowledging nature and the power of spirits, or as we come to see just later on, maybe a crazy man living in the forest and eating squirrels. But it's as if, when we think back on it, and this is why I always say you have to see a film twice, when you think back on it, it's as if he's standing there summoning summoning the Indian gods, or saying, "Let me tell you a story," bringing us this story. It is then we are immersed into a scene that looks and feels familiar to us as Americans, a country Western culture. It references films like The Deer Hunter, the opening of The Deer Hunter, and even The Godfather, and the way it brings a whole group of people into view at once. And when we look at it, it's very disconcerting. Where are we? Are we in Canada? Are we in the United States? There's country music, mountains, square dancing, Confederate flags, and a father singing the Tennessee Waltz to his daughter, getting off the bandstand and asking his redheaded 16-year-old daughter to dance with him while his wife dances with their young son. It is so disconcerting because this really exists in France. This is a real community in France that operates this way. As they love country and Western style, country and Western music. They live their lives this way. This all seems like anywhere, and so it could be anywhere, and anywhere but central France, as I said, but it is. And little does Alain know, but this would be his last dance with his daughter, Kelly. From here, the film unfolds in those begins to unfold. And each chapter is separated by an ellipsis of years. In the first, the young woman disappears. Kelly disappears. This is a period of investigation. We delve into the relationship between father and son, which grows stronger during a trip to Antwerp. As Alain becomes more obsessed with his quest, we see the son become his father's keeper. The third chapter opens up into an adventure with cross-country expedition through Pakistan on horseback, ending up with a killing. We see a world where a woman can be exchanged for a wrist chain. The last chapter is the return home and a love story. Alain's quest makes him clam up and drift away from the world he knows. In the scene when he goes to Charleville, a man has him come up to see how he lives. Alain interrupts him. He couldn't care less. He's looking for his daughter. In a sense, what he's telling us is, make no mistake, this is not a socially conscious film. Alain is not a socially conscious person. This is about a man's quest, and he is not interested in the rest of the world at all. One day it occurs to you that you know nothing of your child. You don't know their pals or their girlfriends or the films they watch. They're growing up. The only thing you have is an occasional report card. He thought his daughter was good, but he sees he is left with two options: to either let her go or resist. Alain decides to resist, to hold on no matter what, while Nicole, his wife, is more trusting and understanding. Alain is incapable of letting go, but Kid is a fascinating character. Subdued at first, quiet, we see him become more confident, growing up, coming of age. The story of a father searching for his daughter becomes a coming-of-age story of a son who is looking for his father in a way to surpass him. Kid's quest enables him to open up to the world. He is the opposite of his father. He will begin to embrace the world. In leaving with Ahmed in the beginning, Kelly overturns the destiny of her whole community. First her father's, then her brother's, all the way down to the girl we meet towards the end, Shazana, the young Pakistan woman who will find herself also in a whole new world, far from the path that had been laid out for her. It is interesting that Kelly leaves and in the end is replaced by Shazana. The myth of the cowboy underlies all of this. Alain's quest gives him the opportunity to live the life he imagines, the cowboy life, traveling the world with his hat on his head, sleeping with his boots on, in a different place every night, living in a shack with all his clothes on. Alain sees himself as a real-life cowboy, yet it is Kid who actually becomes one. He lives his father's dream and surpasses it. His character, who asserts his sexuality and his personality, is a typical figure from Westerns. For those of you who remember the classics, like The Magnificent Seven, with 6 mercenaries, with nothing left to lose and the young man who travels with them. If you remember that film at all, it introduced the world to Horst Buchholz, by the way, the actor. And he represents hope and falling in love with a Mexican, with the other. This is about falling in love with the other. The film does not judge the characters. Even the cowboys of the town, when they take it out on Shazana for keeping her head covered. If you remember, towards the end, they go to the rodeo and they accost her. She has her head covered. It's because we see these people as both good and not so good when we end up accepting it all, because they are first and foremost human beings, by turns hurt, courageous, or cowardly. When Isabel, George's aunt, attacks Shazana towards the end, we don't stigmatize the whole community because she's portrayed as only human. It's because at the beginning, we've seen her affectation for Alain and her admiration for his quest. Similarly, the mother may have been mistaken to trust Kelly, but she's so touched by her absence that she ends up changing her mind. One of the takeaways the writer and director felt was the central theme of mercy. Mercy was all important in this film. And when it comes to the character of the American, portrayed by none other than John C. Reilly, a nice surprise to the film, who is half fortune hunter and half guardian angel, he fits right into this Western motif. He is a bounty hunter. He is a bounty hunter. But the bounty in question here is insurance money. He's the one who settles the ransom. They actually interviewed someone involved in this kind of work for the film. And when they had him read the script, he told them that it was totally credible. This did go on, but not nearly as incredible as reality sometimes is. He said, these guys are the real adventurers, the real cowboys in this world. George's journey through the Middle East has a picturesque dimension to it. We see him evolve as he gets to know the secondary characters. The forger, for instance, is a hard man, most likely racist in how he deals with people, but who will help his friends. Emma, the government worker in Pakistan, is also the one who likes the kid, is also hard but charming, and she believes in her humanitarian mission. Thanks to her, we understand how Kid has reached a turning point. The Indian, Kid's friend, the one we see at the beginning, goes to the cemetery and goes fishing with him and talks about his solitude and much more. They all add a picturesque dimension to the story. As the adventure progresses, they allow us to discover the different facets of the kid, of George. In the ending, he sees Shazana, he sees his sister. Let's go to the ending. He sees his sister, and through the silence, we get the feeling that he is telling her she is still his sister, as though he says, thank you for the change. It is an acknowledgement of her as well. They can both move on with their lives. The choice of locations to the story, from a monochromatic urban setting with mountains and towns that box in the horizon, in the farthest part later on, to wide open spaces in the suns in his journey. So we go from a not a claustrophobic, but a closed-in community where we open up to wide vistas, crossing oceans, crossing seas, and eventually crossing a desert. The filmmakers chose Lyon and Chambéry, the two towns in France, that recall that landscape of Wyoming. In Pakistan, we see a more arid open landscape where Kid will feel very much at home. It was important to show that Alain, his father in the city, is out of place. He's out of place. He's constantly looking around. He doesn't feel comfortable. We see him when they're walking along the street the first time. You notice people on the roof following them. It's almost like Indians on the crest of a mountain following the cowboys through the canyon. Hunting them down. And in Charleville, the decor turns monochrome, and Northern Europe darker yet. When the characters return home, it's a return to the valley, where mountains block, once again, the horizon. the director, Thomas Biddegane, explained that Kelly's leaving to join the jihad was based on their research into an infamous gang whose members fought in Bosnia in the early 90s and got involved with the Islamic movement and in the late 90s and early 2000s, and how this was the first inkling of the Islamic terrorist movement in the 90s, even if there weren't many examples yet. So in essence, this was the beginning of what would become ISIS along the way. What was strange was how they saw current events catching up with them. When they wrote the screenplay in 2012, nobody was talking about the phenomenon of what was going on. As the news progressed concerning Al-Qaeda and ISIS, they were even afraid of being called opportunists when they made the film. When that wasn't all the case, what they wanted was to talk about what was happening in the early years of the 21st century. Hence the idea of a Western and a pioneer spirit that is trying to push the frontier. In fact, that's what the film is really about. It's pushing the frontiers of France. It's a story of simple folk who are projected into the chaos of a world they don't understand. So they used the big true story to reveal the smaller one, intimate and fictional, introducing the events of 9/11. If you remember when kids sees it on the TV, halfway through the film, it reveals a whole new perspective of the representation of terrorism. Suddenly, a whole network of terrorists have begun spanning out into the world, and it broadens the horizon of the film as kids sees the World Trade Center collapse on a TV screen. Instead of seeing an international catastrophe, he sees in it his sister. It's at this point that the smaller story becomes part of the bigger picture. In other words, seeing that sets him on his quest to go to the Middle East. The film finally ends in 2011 with the emergence of the Islamic State. So the film is really a prologue to the horrors that would follow. The film's strength lies in the way it continually collapses the distance between people and cultures, forcing its characters to reckon with what they perceive as strange and unfamiliar. The most heroic and quintessentially Western thing about like Cowboys is that this moral imperative comes off not as some vague, well-meaning gesture toward tolerance, but rather as the logical conclusion of its bracing and adventurous spirit. And we're talking mainly about Kid's story. George seems to be the one character who overcomes the hatred and biases of his father, putting them aside to overcome cultural boundaries with the changing nature of France and its uneasy relationship with the Islamic world, that its former colonies and immigration policies are brought into the country, if not assimilated. Lake Cowboys shows us a subculture that has absorbed one alien culture, America's Old West. It's interesting that while they have to absorb the culture of the colonies that they had, these French people are absorbing another culture that wasn't theirs, the American West. And yet they cannot relate to one another. The strangely dressed people of different faith, values, and color who have settled in with them in France. The Searchers was, in American terms, John Ford's Brown versus, this is going to sound interesting, Brown versus the Board of Education Western, a film that metaphorically wrestles with America's 1960s civil rights movement in the form of a cowboys and Indians tale. The music sets the pace for the different chapters and marks the tempo. It underscores the drama in the first part, adds a melancholy theme in the second, and rides along with the adventure in Pakistan and becomes more intimate with the acoustic guitar, that beautiful acoustic guitar in the last part of the film. The use of the Tennessee Waltz also becomes a major element. First, it is Alain who sings it to his daughter. Later, we hear the classic Connie Francis version of the song, just before Alain dies in the crash. He is hearing it on the radio. The song is haunting and deals with loss. Francois Damien, who plays Alain, has appeared in many films in France, both comedies and dramas. He plays the character Alain as a strong man who takes his destiny into his own hands, refusing to be a victim, but hardening his heart along the way. The actor who plays the kid, and this was one of his first films, his name is Finnegan Oldfield, and he has become one of France's up-and-coming major presences since the making of Les Cowboys. And he is totally credible in the role, quiet, an observer who eventually finds his way. I especially love it when he brings Susanna home, and eventually they have a child, and the bow and arrow and all of these things, bringing again the Western motif into their lives. Shazana is played by young actress Allura Torchia, who is, believe it or not, half Italian and half Indian. From India. After having met with 20 actresses with the director, she read the script and sent the video to the casting director, and they thought that there was something wonderful about her, and there certainly was. I thought she was terrific in the part. There are so many instances in the film, so many scenes that are memorable. When we go to the Middle East, when Kid is riding along with the bounty hunter, and they stop at an oasis or whatever it is, like a fort. It's like an old fort. Again, it has that Western motif in it, and they're riding horseback through this area. It's great. And they stop in this place, and they're smoking probably hashish. It's like passing the peace pipe. It's like passing the peace pipe. Everything alludes to a Western idea, and it's interesting how they use it, which makes the film universal in so many ways for us. We can hook into it in so many different ways, and I think that's what makes it very interesting and appealing. But everything works. The cinematography is wonderful. To this, the use of dark and light in the cityscapes, the use of the sun in the desertscapes, seeing Kid trying, following Kelly's husband, boyfriend who kidnaps her, and thinking he's going to find Kelly, and finds Shazana and winds up killing him, inadvertently having to kill him. The scenes in the jail when the two of them come together, I thought was terrific. There is so much going on in the film, and I want to leave you to mention what you thought of it and some of the scenes you found interesting and any questions you may have. So let's jump into the conversation. Who wants to go first? Do I see a hand? Bobby.
Yeah.
Up. Wait. You gotta go ahead.
Okay. I thought it was very interesting how his mother, was able to act with the family that her daughter ran away with, and how hard it had to have been for the son to meet them. And they made the comment, at least, you've got, you'll know, we'll never see, what's happened to your daughter, but we will never see our son again. And how, different, how they were able to have the same feelings, although, their nationality, their religion, everything was different. And I thought that played very well.
Yeah, I mean, George, the kid, he couldn't tell the father, what actually happened, what transpired, which is interesting. But yeah, and I thought again, this is a story about the other, embracing the other in spite of what happens to his sister, and how that this community has to learn to embrace them. Especially Shazana. I mean, when she gets on that horse at the end, towards the end, and rides it, she's so comfortable on the horse. And it's amazing. And you would think their reaction would have been much better than it was. His kid's aunt gets mad. It shouldn't have been that way. But we see, it is human. This is humanity. We see humanity in all its guises in the film. Thank you, Bobby. Dorothy.
Yeah, there was so much in here that, first of all, I had no idea of this cowboy culture in Eastern France.
Yeah.
That was I thought it was made up, but apparently it's real. That was very interesting. Some of it I found unbelievable, but at the end, when he found his sister, I really was wondering in my own mind, they had to separate because I don't think she had a clue of what went on in their lives looking for her. Her father died, he killed a man, and yet, the son walked away and she didn't go to find him, her brother. She didn't go after him either. So I didn't know what to make of that.
Well, she, first of all, she says at the beginning, she writes the letter, "Don't look for me." And later on, and what she did is she adopted another faith.
Right.
We realized that at the end, but she extricated herself from the terrorist life. She probably saw where he was going and she got out of it. She had her 2 children. She went to France. She went back or wherever she was. I think it was the Netherlands. She went back to Europe. To get away from there, but she had that faith. And what's interesting in that scene, because that scene does encapsulate a lot, is we hear the 2 kids and they're doing their homework, and she's stressing education at that point. She's an involved mother. She's working, and she's got her own family unit. She's made her way in life, and he is not going to upset that balance. He can't. She's obviously taken her road and he's taken his road. But what's interesting is the juxtaposition of Kelly and Shazana, and for the mother, that the mother has now, she embraces Shazana. She feels like, okay, I have a daughter again, in the end. It becomes so there is another family unit,
Right.
and there's hope. There is hope on all sides, is what's interesting there.
Yeah.
Which was where it works out. But it's interesting you bring up, you not knowing about this. Not many of us probably did know about this kind of community, but they have them all over Europe. In fact, in Belgium and in the Netherlands, they have these kinds of communities. They're into bluegrass music. They have their own little festivals. They do dress up. They have their own community. So it's more wide than you think.
Yeah, absolutely. Very
Yeah.
interesting.
Thank you,
Very good.
Dorothy.
Very
Okay.
good.
Thank you. Jackie.
Well, I have a couple of things, or maybe 3 things. One, I thought John C. Reilly was a stroke of genius to cast him as that character. I absolutely love that. A big smile when I saw him. But I thought this movie was about secrets and consequences, because it's sort of like each person, the secret that they hold, whether it's converting to another religion or whether it was shooting the son, the secrets that they hold have the consequences for other people. And I mean, they can't change that. I mean, it's like I think it was Dorothy, you just said that the daughter really didn't have any idea at all what had happened with these people looking for her. And the same thing, it's like when the father is saying at the end, he wants to find the son, but he can't because mother's sick. It's all the secrets and the consequences of those secrets and the decisions. And I thought at the end, the look they passed between the 2 of them was, it's okay. It's okay. And that was how we felt
yeah.
when it ended.
Oh, absolutely. It was okay in his mind. He smiles when he leaves. But the secrets and the consequences, yes, they're very real. They're a part of the story. They're not really the story because it's the humanity of the story. It's, as I said, how well do people really know their children? Now, the mother discovers the books, the Arabic. She was writing Arabic. They had no idea. She was keeping these journals or learning to write in Arabic. She was keeping those secrets from them for obviously a while. Even the kids in school said something about it, that they hadn't seen her. She was beginning to separate herself. And that, yes, those are secrets, but they're secrets that we can relate to. I mean, in any culture, the kids grow up and they go to school and they start to meet the other. They're exposed to the other and they may fall in love with the other. They may start to embrace it, or they'll be seduced by the other. And that's what happened here. They had no idea. They had no idea. They were so involved in their lives, in this Western life, this Western motif, that they couldn't see the other. And here it was right there. It was right there because they were neighbors. I mean, his family lived in the community and they didn't see it. And Alain really doesn't, he's the only one, he's only obsessed. His quest is an obsession. He has to find her, and he winds up, he has that fight with the kid at that point. Remember at the Frankfurter stand, when he says, I want to go away, he says, no, we're not going to do it again. Leave it be. And that's when the father dies. He goes off and he's driving and he dies. And it isn't until, the kid sees 9/11 that he realizes there's a world out there and my sister's in that world, and he picks up the quest. But, and he carries with him everything he knows. I mean, he knows how his mother feels. He knows how his father felt. He's carrying all of this inside. And even it's funny you said, John C. Reilly was terrific. John C. Reilly had his own secrets. We don't know who he was. Was he working for the CIA? Was he really a bounty hunter? When he gives up the kid, you see him paying him a lot of money. We have no idea what he's doing because he has him digging his own grave outside. I mean, we don't know what's going on. And yet we know that he must have been watching over him. He didn't let him, he didn't walk away from him. In some way, he managed to, bargain for him. And then he had a bargain for the girl, naturally. But it was interesting how that all takes place because that's real in that world. That's what these people look for. But yes, secrets and lies. And in fact, if you look at almost every film, you will find secrets and lies. That's what motivates people. That's, as I've said before, Jean Renoir, a great French director, said, life on Earth is that everybody has their reasons, and their reasons are their secrets. And that's what we have to dive in within the film, is to find, is to understand those secrets, how one doesn't know. We as an audience know, but characters don't know. And it's, when will it be revealed? How will they find out? That's structurally part of a script, part of a story. But terrific that you see it that way. Thank you. Who else? What? I can't believe no one has anything to say about this film. You sure you watched it? Come on, somebody's got to have something to say. Let's see some hands. I'd be interested in your viewpoints. If you didn't like it, tell me why.
I have one more thing to ask. I found the time structure in the very beginning. Once we got into the second chapter, I got it, but the jump from the first to the second kind of confused actually both of us.
Yeah.
But I did wonder why he was so insistent when he heard about the bombings on the subway or whatever it is in England, why he was so
Barcelona. That was,
well, why was he so, she said, you're going there. What made him think? I mean, I just couldn't figure out what made him think that he would find her. He did, so it worked. But I
Yeah.
wondered what made him think that.
he just had I think it was just, you know, we can call it intuition. He was, as I said, he was, you know, this was the inkling of the beginning of terrorism. I mean, this was really, I mean, we experienced terrorism on our shores. We saw terrorism around the world, and I think he was feeling that if his sister was involved in this, that's where he'd find her. That's where he would find her. You know, in other words, is my sister a terrorist? And if she is, can I find her and get her out? Can I find her and get her out? I think that was his motivation. You know, is to get her, is to extricate her from whatever she's in. You know, I think he believed, you know, after he sees her at the end, you know, she's been through her own journey, which we can only imagine. And I think he has to imagine it too. You know, he wants to believe his sister isn't a bad person, and he or she is raising a family, and that's part of what makes him feel better, is that she's in a safe place. I think that's important too. But it's you know, and the timeline is meant to be what we call elliptical. You know, it has ellipses in it. It has air in between times, leaving us to wonder what happened in between. I mean, we don't know what happened to Kelly. We get letters at times, but we don't know what really happened. And then finally, as we watch him grow up, we really begin to understand what's happening and get used to it. But it's true. I think he does that on purpose. I mean, look, at the very beginning, we have no idea where we are. You know, until they start speaking. The cars are American. They're for, you know, there are all kinds of cars in that parking lot at the beginning. So we could be in the Rockies. I mean, it just, you know, I thought it was amazing the way he opens the film.
Except for the calendar. The calendar
Yes.
was French on the
Yes,
on the
that's a
date.
giveaway. That's a giveaway. But all the other things, the Confederate flags, I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing. The detail. So thank you, Jackie. And if you want to come in again, be my guest. Come on. I can't believe I you know, always seeing names out there. I hope they're still here.
Yeah.
Linda, thank you.
I don't really have anything to say much, but I'll help you out here. I listening to the discussion, I can see how this would be a great movie for discussion, and with the background of the other Western that it was, you know, done and all that. But when I was watching it, I just felt like I'm not sharp enough for this movie. I'll have to try again another time, you know, because the scenes when you would get a little something were just so brief, and then you're on to something else. And I was just like always trying to do catch up in my mind and to figure out what's going on. So, you know, if the rest of you got it, then you're just smarter than me, because I was lost, you know, so much of the film. And now listening to you, if I heard the discussion first and then watched the movie, I would probably like it better. So,
Yeah, but then you told me all about the movie. Why should I watch it?
You should watch it twice, but I didn't have time
Yeah.
to do that this week. But I was really just pretty confused because some of the characters, even like when they were talking later, and that I didn't even realize that was the boy's family, because I just seen the man once, and my mind doesn't work that good that I see somebody once and then I see them later. I don't know if it's somebody that looks like somebody at the grocery store last week. You know, I don't catch that quickly. So I just found the movie very challenging to be able to.
I understand, and you're not different. You know, this doesn't make you different. Okay, this I think a lot of people, and I think that's sometimes with a challenging film. That's what happens. You know, somebody will say, "Well, I didn't really like it. I didn't understand it. It jumped around. I didn't give blah, 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 blah."
Well, see, I'm a reader, and with the reading, you can figure
Yes.
it out, because you'll get enough of things. Like even with the girl, I was never, till we got to the end, sure that she ran away. because some of those things, like those letters home, those could have been dictated to her where she did it. I thought she possibly was trafficked or something, you know? And so I'm always thinking about those things as we're going on. So I probably missed some of the little clues in other scenes, but it was just so fast. You get a little scene here and a little scene there, and I would almost have to see a syllabus now and go back and try to connect the dots, you know, to get it.
That's very real, and
Uh-huh.
I think, you know, you should watch it again when
Mhm.
you get a chance. You know, if you feel like it, go back in and watch it again.
And
it's,
maybe
you
even
know,
some scenes of the young girl where she was with the boy, or showing some a little bit of the Muslims, something to give us a clue that she really did leave of her own free will. And then you're on that path, right? And then later, if it had been just a little bit more to kind of know you're on the you know, the path, then maybe I could have then thought about it as being a movie of the other, you know, and things like that. But my mind just didn't go there, because I'm still trying to figure, well, you know, is she okay? Has she been trafficked, or, you know, or whatever? And then I just kept waiting for them, you know, to find her in some sort of terrible situation and bring her home. And, you know, and so like, it was just didn't work for my mind. I was all over the place, but you know, the rest of you can tell me
well,
that nobody
that's
felt that way.
structurally, it would be too easy. If you saw her with because we never see the boy, okay, until later on when he gets killed. But that would be too easy. The whole point is to
Yeah, but
challenge you.
sometimes you want, well, but there's challenging you and then just leaving you where you don't know what in the heck's going on, you know.
Well,
that's
it's question. You have to question. Okay, let me keep going.
Yeah.
It's,
I
it's
did. I watched it to the
and
end.
as you keep going, you'll see.
Yeah.
You'll see where,
And I'm
you
here
know, if it
tonight
doesn't,
to find out what I watched. You know,
if it
so,
doesn't give you closure, you know, it doesn't
Yeah.
take you to where, you know, to this so-called ending, and it makes sense, then yes, there's a problem. But the
I was
idea
fine
is,
with the ending. I understood that, because by then, you know, when I saw that, it did clarify a lot, because she looked, you know, fine and everything like that. And so everything was that. And I could understand just the fact that they looked and all. But see, but that took me all the way to the end before I even kind of knew what was going on.
well,
So,
I told you, my prime rule, the prime directive
What?
is you see a movie twice. The first time you watch it, the second time you see it.
Yeah.
And that's why a discussion is always good, because but
Yeah.
I also recommend, if you have a chance, and it's always on. I mean, you get on Turner Classic Movies, it's probably on a ton of streaming channels. The film The Searchers, the John Wayne film. I mean, you watch that, and then you'll watch this film, and you'll say, wow, he really got a lot out of that into this.
Right.
But the fact is, he took what was uniquely an American story. You know, it's the American West when it was being settled. It's just after the Civil War. And it's the animosity toward the Native Americans that we're dealing with here. And John Wayne's character, I mean, he is Alain. And except he survives at the end, but he really has disdain for the Native Americans.
Right.
And he doesn't even know why. He really has no idea why. And Natalie Wood is the young girl in the film.
Yeah,
And you don't see her till towards the end anyway, but it's interesting what happens. I won't tell you what happens at the end of that one. That one you'd have to see for yourself, but you'll understand. It helps you understand this movie in many ways. Thank you, Linda. Jackie?
Okay, just one more thing. We actually thought that them not knowing added to the intrigue of the movie.
Yes.
And while
Mhm.
I was saying I was going to say that, Larry made a comment, which I thought was really very good too, is that it puts you as a viewer in exactly the same position that the family was in. You
That's
didn't
true.
know.
Jackie, I have one request. From now
Stop.
on, let Larry say it.
He doesn't. That's the
I
problem.
did. I'm a ventriloquist. Didn't you know?
I want to hear from you.
I think that was good. It was interesting too. The kids' family seemed really grounded and probably the most stable people in the entire movie. But that was kind of strange. You know, the father was really easy going in the beginning, almost too easy, you wonder. And then, of course, you do wonder what happened to the girl. Was she radicalized? Did she just decide to you know, she liked this boy and she liked the Muslim belief or whatever. So it really was a strange feeling that, and the mystery, you know, is she captured? Is she voluntarily gone? And it may
Yeah,
have
I mean,
taken
that is
father down the
that,
wrong path, because he may have been looking for kidnappers and that type of
Mhm.
situation where that wasn't the story at all.
yeah, that's a good point. He didn't, you know, it shows you he really had no idea, which would lead you to what would he believe when he does, if he did encounter her. And she said, I'm not going back with you, you know, and would he drag her back? You know, what would he do? I mean, that's, you know, becomes the questions in our mind, especially after seeing the film and saying, boy, if he survived, what would he have done? You know, who would he have killed along the way? You know, thinking he's a cowboy. But you're right. At the beginning, he was this easygoing guy. He was obviously a central figure in the community. He had a business that everybody knew him. So he was in essence a good old boy in this town. So you know, but he began to see something that he really wasn't and believed he wanted to be, was this cowboy, which was interesting, but great. Thank you, Larry. Susan Mann.
Hi. During those years, there was a concentrated effort among the Muslim community to target women, either for strategic reasons, for terrorism, and to bring them into other communities, and or to bring them back to the Middle East for whatever reason. And they targeted vulnerable young girls. And I know a doctor whose daughter, just out of the blue, went off to live with this guy in Paris and marry him. So I think what would be fascinating is a follow-up on what happened to all these girls, and did the arrangement work out or what?
There are documentaries. There are a number of girls who came back and relayed their stories. There are documentaries. Some of the news stations have done pieces on it. But you're right. I mean, there were girls who were targeted. In this case, the question is in the air. You know, what did they go to high school? Did they fall for it? Was he the one that was seduced into going and then said to her, come with me? We don't know. We won't know. Did she want to get out? We have no idea. There's no answer to that question. And I think that's what's important, because there shouldn't be an specific answer to the question, because there are a number of reasons that girls would leave. They would get seduced into it. You know, as somebody said, was she getting trafficked? We don't know, and we wouldn't know. She left him. We found out she left him. Shazana said she knew her at one point, and she wanted to get out, the sister. So that is all very real. You bring up, good questions about the film, about the reality of the film. And that's, it is good to talk about the follow-up. So thank you. Susan Hurst. Now everybody's coming in. I love
Oh,
it.
yeah, now we all thought of something to say.
Good.
The first place the father and the son went when they went on their quest, this Arab or somebody's, I don't know, remember where they were, but this suspicious looking man says, we've been waiting for you. And they go inside this building, this steel door slams, they go through a hallway, another slam. I'm thinking, they're going to get beaten up, because that's what happens in American TV and movies. And that was such an American reaction. Nothing happened to them. They just wanted money. But I thought they were going to see violence for sure. And another thing is about the square dancing scene where they just show the dancers from the waist down. I thought that was so great. I have done that square dancing and it's not easy. I can't remember all those kicks and steps and all that stuff. And they were all doing it perfectly with no music. I thought that was so intriguing. I really like that. And when the father died, I thought maybe he had committed suicide. He had just gotten so desperate and angry that he just decided to commit suicide. I
It's
don't
an
know.
interesting comment. I think he was despondent. I think he had been drinking, and he was driving and maybe he did let go. We don't know. Again, that's one of these questionable things. But I love your comments, when they did go and all they wanted was money. And the fact, and it is threatening. It was a threatening situation. And yes, we're so programmed to think that, okay, he's going to whip out a gun and he's going to shoot everybody, to get out of there. And he doesn't have to. But I love the way they're dealing. He says, this is all I got. This is what you get. And they were looking and we don't even know if they really knew where they were. We don't know that. And they could have been bluffing him at that point.
Right.
We just don't know. But we were dealing with a whole underworld here, especially the guy that had the photographs, when they went to him and they're looking and he, it's each of these people along the way is in essence an underground. It's a terrorist underground. And we don't know. And you had the guy who invites them into his house, and he had nothing to do with anything. These are the characters they meet along the way. Everybody wants a piece. Everybody, when they see somebody in trouble, they see somebody, they become susceptible. They could be victimized or whatever. And he was obsessed, and he didn't care. But he thought I could deal with them no matter what. He was going to be the big hero. And he wasn't. He was dealing with a really mysterious world and had no idea what he was dealing with. The kid sat there and observed, and I think he took all of that with him later on. So we saw his evolution in the film. It was his coming of age in this film. And I think it's a story of youth beginning to understand the world around them outside of France. It's take your head out of where you are and see the world. Otherwise, the world is going to come in on you. It's going to collapse on you. I think that's part of the story. So thank you, Susan. Thank you. Bobby. Bobby, you got to unmute.
Sorry.
There you go.
They had some of the girls had a problem, the ones that came back, with the ones from England, because they didn't know, I don't know what they finally decided, but the English did not know if they should take them back. They had denounced, basically they had committed treason.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing, is to determine how much they were brainwashed, how much they really believed what they were doing. I mean, it is a problem. It's a major problem.
And I also think at the beginning, the father thought he was a cowboy when he started, but I think a lot of it, to tell you the truth, I think what really started him, he loved his daughter. He had great pride in his daughter. This was his daughter, whatever. Yeah. And it was like he could not believe that she would betray him like this. And then, then the rest of his personality came out as he started looking for this whole thing. I enjoyed the movie the first time. I enjoyed it even more the second time.
That's what I like to hear.
Yeah.
But you bring up an interesting point, is we don't know what that relationship was. And that's another, yes, we get the feeling, he loved his daughter, but I think he was also a bit possessive.
Yes.
To the point that also we don't know the things he said. Obviously, he didn't like that community. He didn't like the other. And he may have spouted this out at times. And she may have heard it and it may have bothered her, but she didn't say anything. and then she's being indoctrinated into this. And she's certainly not going to say anything to her father, because he's going to say, I'll kill the kid, whatever it is. So we don't know. We have to start forming in our mind things that we don't know that could have happened.
And she was
So,
a 16-year-old girl,
yeah.
first.
Thank you. Great. Susan Mann.
And this segment of film that plays in Pakistan, I mean, it was like a whole different film in a way. That was very reminiscent of Homeland, the TV series.
Yes.
If even the scenery, the house looked the same. I thought, gee, I wonder if they used that set.
No.
Yeah, I just
No, it's well, not only that, but we didn't talk about the scene at the camp where the kid was working at that whatever it was a NATO camp, whatever it was a GMO camp, but they were, handing out food, they were taking care. He was involved in a good way. He became, whereas the father was taking them deeper and deeper into this underworld, he was going to the other side. He was doing good work, so to speak. He was trying to accomplish something positive. He was learning as he went along. I mean, he didn't want to kill the other boy. He didn't want to kill him. He wanted to talk to him. He wanted to find his sister. That's all he wanted to do. And when he gets out, when they come back, he's obviously fallen in love with her. The mother's accepted her. And, when they have a child, I mean, it's a much more positive family unit, a much more accepting family unit. In that case. So, we get a resolution. Sometimes you wouldn't get a resolution in the film. And here we get a resolution of a kind. I mean, it's only a new beginning, but it's a resolution. And it was a good one. So anybody else have anything to say? Well, since you don't want to talk about this film, I'll tell you about the next one. In 2 weeks, we come back, we meet again, and we are going to see it's a new theme for next month. The theme is Two Sides of Love. The first is an historic romance, and it is entitled A Royal Affair. It was nominated for an Academy Award back in 2013 for Best Foreign Language Film. It is from Denmark. For those of you who know him, it stars a wonderful actor, Mads Mikkelsen, who I'm sure you've seen all over the place. He was Hannibal the Cannibal on TV in Hannibal on CBS several years ago. But anyway, and the other two actors in the film I will tell you about when we see it. But having won a great international acclaim and awards for its sumptuous production values and performances, A Royal Affair follows the lives of young Danish, this is all true, by the way, young Danish queen, Carolina Mathilde, who is married to Christian VII, the King of Denmark, considered by many to be an insane king. When she falls secretly in love with the court physician, together they start a revolution that would change a nation forever. This is about a man who we know little of, who really changed the face of Denmark back in the 1700s, back in the 18th century. It is a marvelous film. It takes place at a time of revolution in the world and how it came to Denmark. So I look forward to a good discussion then. And I wish you adieu and have a good couple of weeks.
Thank you, everybody. Shelly will be back on May 8th for that movie. So we look forward to seeing everybody, and thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you, Shelly, very much.
Thank you, Jackie. Appreciate it. Love it. Take care,
Good
everybody.
night, everybody.